Welcome back to America Right Now. I'm Tom Basili. In the second part of my interview with Speaker Mike Johnson, got an inside look at what the Speaker's day one agenda will be, how President Trump plans to secure the border, and who the Speaker believes is truly running the country. Watch. President Biden this week referred to Trump supporters as garbage. There has been a pretty dramatic shift in the tone and the tenor of the Democrats' closing argument. They went from joy to Republicans are fascists and racists, and Trump is Hitler and whatnot. Right. Your reaction to that?
Well, their closing argument in this campaign is not only uninspiring, it's dark and foreboding and angry, and it's the exact opposite of what they tried to project when they came out of the blocks with Kamala Harris's campaign. I don't think the American people are buying that. I think this election is ultimately going to be about record and not rhetoric, and they're looking at the actual performance of both of these candidates for president. You know, this is an unusual year for that. Not since the late 1880s have you had two persons in a contest who have actually had an administration. We had a Trump administration. We've had a Harris administration with Biden. And the question that President Trump keeps returning to and begins, as he began in Madison Square Garden with his first question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And there's not a single American who can answer that question affirmatively. And that's why Kamala Harris doesn't talk about policy. She doesn't talk about her record. They're running a campaign based on fantasy over fact. But the American people are smart, and they know that their families, their small businesses, everybody will be better off on the security standpoint, from liberty, opportunity, if you elect President Trump and the Republicans and put us back in charge. And I think that's why we'll get that opportunity.
You mentioned the Madison Square Garden event. You were there last week. That was a big part of President Trump's closing argument on this campaign. He mentioned you about a dozen times, I think, during that speech. Talk to me about your relationship with him and how that has developed over the last year.
Well, we have a great working relationship. It goes back 8 years because I came to Washington the same time he did in January 2017 as a freshman in Congress. And we began to work together from the very beginning on big issues. And then I defended him twice in impeachment defense when they went their bogus impeachment efforts after him. And we've been through a lot of valleys together. And so we've developed this great working relationship of trust. And he knows that when I provide counsel to him or tell him something I have to do, that what I'm doing is in good faith and in his best interest and the best interest of the country. And I think that is a great foundation for us to tackle the challenges that are ahead of us. And, you know, I think President Trump's head and his heart are in exactly the right place where you would want the next commander-in-chief to be. We're facing the greatest, I guess, collection of challenges probably that we've faced since World War II as a nation, maybe since the Civil War. I tell him all the time, Mr. President, I believe you're going to be the most consequential president of the modern era in your next term because, sir, we have to fix everything now. And he knows that. And it's going to be policy and agenda driven. We're looking forward to not wasting one moment. As soon as the proverbial ball is handed to us, we're going to run the plays and we're going to turn this country around. And
the average American has seen sort of a cumulative inflation of about 25% under this administration. We obviously have an unimaginable issue with immigration, crime coming across the border, and drugs. The former president's been very disciplined on both of those points. That is what he continues to talk about, tackling both of those. Talk to us, should you be successful on Tuesday and you retain a House majority, how do you even begin to try to address the issue of inflation and the issue of immigration right out the gate in January?
Well, you begin with sound leadership and a plan. I think we'll secure the border on day one. I think it will be immediately upon President Trump's taking the oath of office. He'll issue an executive order under Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which gives the president unilateral authority to close the border if he deems it to be in the nation's interest. He will take a step like that, and then we'll come behind with legislation. Immediately thereafter, we will turn to the economy. We know how to bring about, to revive the free market and bring about economic prosperity for the American people. We've done it already. His first administration, we achieved that after 2 years. The greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. And so we'll extend the Trump-era tax cuts to make sure they don't expire and have the largest tax increase in U.S. history, which would happen in 2025. And then we're going to dramatically reform the regulatory state. Right now, we have whole industries facing existential threats to their existence because the agencies of the executive branch have been weaponized against them. So we're going to bring them to heel, and we're going to get the government's boot off the neck of job creators and entrepreneurs and risk takers, and that will allow the free market to thrive again. So it'll be a pro-growth economy. The energy policy will be at the center of all this as well, because it's not just for our economic security, it's national security. And we have a lot of big plans on how to do this early in the term, a very aggressive first 100 days agenda. And we will address the top issues of the American people in order. And I think if we have a unified government, Republicans running the White House, the Senate, and the House, you'll be able to see the effects of this very quickly.
435 members of the United States House of Representatives. How many seats are in play? You've been all over the country. You've been on the boots on the ground. How many seats do you think are really in play on Tuesday that are going to make the difference?
Well, because of gerrymandering and redistricting, the number of actual toss-up seats in swing districts has dwindled pretty substantially in recent years. So of the 435 seats, it really comes down to probably 20 or less that are the actual toss-up seats. So you're seeing an enormous amount of energy, time, and money expended to win these seats. I'm very confident because, again, it's about the quality of the candidates at the end of the day, and we have an extraordinary stable of persons who've been recruited to flip blue seats to red, and then our incumbents are running really great races. California and New York being some of the swing seats that will decide the majority, but I feel really good about everyone that we have in the field. They're credible, they have great life stories, great sets of skills and experiences they bring to the table, and they're very effective spokespersons. They're out providing the answers to all the great challenges facing the country, and people are believing in that because they like who they're hearing from and what they're seeing. I think that makes a big difference on Election Day, and that's why I think we're going to have the majority.
Exit question for you. I asked you last time that I sat with you who was running the country. You made it very clear you didn't think it was Joe Biden. Have we figured this out yet, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, the best we can tell, this is some holdovers from the Obama administration, people that were close in his orbit, senior staffers that are still around. And so far as I can tell, they're the ones pulling strings. And it's an alarming thing to know that the commander-in-chief is not actually commanding. And I think that's been the case for some time. And I'll say, here at the close that Kamala Harris is to blame for this. I mean, she brags about how she was the last person in the room, and she engaged in what's probably one of the biggest political cover-ups of, in the history of the country. I mean, she knew about his diminishing abilities to do the job, and she hid it from the American people. And that's something that should give us great concern about her character and her judgment. I let people judge that for themselves.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for spending some time with us.
Thanks so much.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.